Today at shop.dap.com, we're going to be installing a Dogbone insert on our facelift MK7 GTI. Okay, so today we have a MK7 facelift GTI. This is a friend of ours vehicle. We're going to be doing a Dogbone insert. So we also have a driver's side engine mount and a trans mount, all the BFI stuff for this vehicle that we're doing a video on. We will make sure we link to those videos as they become available in the description below where you can find them. Okay, so before we get into showing you a little more detail about the pendulum mount, we want to talk about why you would do this. So pendulum mounts are something that is often going to be something that's best for traction, because when you have this thing rocking back and forth, it's going to create a lot of wheel hop. That will be obviously sacrifice traction and not give you the best experience when you're trying to accelerate or launch your vehicle. So that's going to be your main purpose of installing the Dogbone insert. And so right here connects to the engine and transmission here, engine here. And so basically what's going to happen is as this vehicle gets traction, the engine and transmission is going to want to shift backwards. So this pendulum is what connects obviously the engine and trans front to back to the body of the vehicle. So getting this insert in here, as you can see, there's kind of cutouts here. This will improve the stiffness of this by taking up some of this slack for this bushing to move. Now, you will get a little bit more cabin vibration from that insert, but it is a couple things. One, easily installed and removed, so if you're not happy with it, you can always swap it out. And it is something that is easy to resolve if you were to want to change your mind about the install itself. So we're going to be showing you this install, and we are going to start by removing our bolt here. Okay, so we have our 21 on here and we have our breaker bar. Now we have a pretty long breaker bar. These are pretty tight, so you need to make sure you have something long. You also can try to use a pipe or something to that effect to remove this. But you will need something that's got some leverage on it. Without that, you're probably gonna have a hard time getting this out. Okay, so here we have our insert. And now this is a facelift car, so this is not gonna be as much of an issue on these as much as on earlier cars. So there were different pendulum mounts or Dogbone inserts here in the subframes of cars, and that is depending on the production date. So VFI actually has two different versions based on production date. This is, they had the post 9/15 was the production date, September 15 of 2015 was a production date. So obviously this one's gonna have a later one, so we don't need to worry here. You only need to worry on earlier 2015 range vehicles. So we're gonna slide this in, and we do have this thing lubricated to allow this to slide in easier. We should be able to take our new bolt and help pull this back up. So let's see if we can get enough in there to get this thing threaded in. Okay, so here we are looking at our subframe mount here, and this is our insert we pushed in there. What it actually did was push up part of the upper mount so that the part where it's threaded to bolt this thing in isn't lined up anymore. So if you look up top here, you may be able to see that right above this sway bar, a piece of the mount here is actually pushing up. So we have a screwdriver, and we're going to try to work this thing down to get it pushed back in place. Now, this may take a little bit of finagling, but we wanted to make sure we show it to you, and this may not be the best angle to work at. So we're going to try to get this thing pushed down, and then we'll be able to get our bolt threaded in, but because it's crooked right now, there's no way we're threading a bolt in. All right. Okay, so our first time in, we lubricated it, but we didn't lubricate it quite enough, and we also had the upper portion of the mount moving on us. So right now we have the bolt installed, so we took this back out, we installed the bolt into the mount without any of the plate or anything on there, so that we can get this in there and that top portion won't separate like it did on us on this time. So let's go ahead and give that another shot. Okay, so we're going to start by installing this again, and this should be a little bit easier with that installed there. So we have a hammer, and we're going to use this dead blow hammer once we got it lined up in there to get this thing popped up. And you want to, again, make sure before you start hammering on this thing that you got it lined up properly. Now we're going to take our bolt out and then mount our plate in place. Okay, so one thing I wanted to mention that we've had happen before is if you get this dog bone too far out of space, you could end up having the engine move forward enough that the bolt will actually go in and not have the circle hole that's cut into the dog bone captive. So what will allow it to happen is you'll actually think you're bolted in there, but as soon as you go to drive this car, this mount will completely come out of here. So you can look up in the hole and see between the bushings, you'll see aluminum and then the black steel plating, which looks like this, and then the aluminum. So you can wiggle that a little bit to make sure that you still have that captive in there. We have checked that to verify it's good, and then we can install this. So you're installing your bushing and then your plate, and we're gonna mount that up there. Now, we're using this to tighten it the rest of the way on there. It should pull up, but I would watch this just to make sure everything's moving up the way it's supposed to. And then we're going to torque this bolt down and get this thing mounted in place. Now, you also will want to just double check before you finalize this that your insert is in place or your mount is in place, which you can do by taking a pry bar, prying forward to make sure that this thing isn't shifting and that it's staying within the subframe. Okay, so now we're going to torque 75 foot-pounds, and then we're going to do a quarter of a turn, which is 90 degrees, which we're going to do with a breaker bar. Now we're going to do our quarter turn, which we have our breaker bar. That always scares me at the angle, you know? And now we torqued it. And we've now completed our Dogbone insert install. We're ready to do some launches. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it.